Hello? If there is anybody in the chat, can you give me a thumbs up? Oh, it's laggy. It is laggy. Okay, is it lagging at all, or does it seem okay? 2 thumbs up, that's good. Okay, must be okay then. I'll wait about 5 minutes or so, just in case people are late and or want to catch up. In the meantime, a little bit about me. Mic is quiet. What about now? With regards to the audio, that might be as high as I can get it, unless I bump it. Mic is a bit quiet. Audio. Hello, hello, hello. Percentage. So I'll bump the percentage up, but this might be really loud, so be warned. Be warned. Ferdinand, can you give me a mic check in terms of volume, since I know you're there? And the volume slider, it should be the highest that it can go. What about now? I can also talk louder if that helps. I don't mind doing that. Actually, let me just double check audio. Okay, I'll speak slightly louder than what I was doing. As long as you can hear me though, I guess that's all that matters. Okay, cool. So, my name is Scott. I am a 3D animator. I have been in the industry for about 3 years or so. And in that time I've worked on things for Netflix, kids TV shows for the BBC, the CBeebies, and some cinematic and game trailers. I am by no means an expert, none of us are, so I'm also still learning, but in that time I've managed to pick up quite a lot of tips and tricks from various different people that I've worked with through different leads and different mentors, and hopefully what I show today is useful. You can also, if you've got any questions, by all means pop them in the chat and I will do my best to answer. What I will be animating or working on today is a little body mechanic shot of this guy doing this kick. So I found this online. This is just through YouTube. It's a relatively short clip, it's about 58 frames or so. Hello everybody. Hello. Hello again. So the clip itself, it's fairly straightforward. So the character will run in, take a couple of steps. He will do a turn mid-air and a flying kick and then land. So it's not too complicated. We'll see how far I can get. I can also do more on a next stream. I don't want to rush anything because I assume people will have questions. Scott is an amazing animator. I'm okay. I'm an okay animator. So yeah, so this is the clip, and I will be using Autodesk Maya. This is a full license. It is a personal license. It is my license. It is just another piece of software. By no means do you need to learn Maya. You can learn 3ds Max or Blender or whatever software. I'm only using this because it's a software that I've used in most of the jobs that I've had. I used Cinema 4D once, but other than that, Maya is the somewhat industry standard, so I will be using it today. I've did a little bit already just to set up the scene, just so we can get up and go. I have my character, which is a body mechanics rig. There is no facial controls available in the character, so it is entirely body mechanics focused. And it's a really clean looking character, so it is it's advanced enough, but there isn't, it's not overwhelming. There's not too many controls, which is great. Something that I would recommend for new animators to use a character like this, as to not overcomplicate things, because animation is complicated, so the easier you can make it on yourself, the better. I have loaded in the reference, which is sitting here, top right of the screen, and it is playing as desired. There's a couple of things that I will be changing in the reference for animation purposes. So there's a pose here that it looks okay. It's not the strongest pose, so I will be adapting that, and I will be tweaking some timing just to make it a little bit more snappier, a little bit more cartoony. But this is definitely a good basis to start off with. What rig am I using? So this is a rig from the Body Mechanics pack, which I can bring up just now. It's a very popular set of characters. It is paid for, but it is rigs that I would recommend. They are now on screen, or they should be. The rig that I am using is this character called Jack, which is just in the middle here. I've used these rigs before, they're great. I can highly recommend them. Again, they do cost, so be warned of that. But they're definitely worth it, especially if you're just starting out. So yes. More questions. More questions. Yes, please ask away. Lots of questions. I expect there to be quite a lot. So, lots of body mechanics. Do you know? So, Mr. Creative has asked if I know how Marvel What If made by softwares. That's asking what software they use to create that show. I would imagine that they'll have their own custom type of software. I'm not sure whether or not it would be Maya. It could be an adaptive version of Maya or their own software. I know they have their own rendering software, so it's very likely that they'll have their own animation software. Okay, cool. One thing to mention before I do anything is just what I've done to the rig in terms of what controls are doing what. So it's always important to set up your rig. So for example, the head just now is set up to FK isolation, which means if I move the spine up and down or left to right, you can see that the head remains positioned still. It doesn't affect and or influence the head. This is something that we can do naturally, so you can rotate your body but your head can remain dead center. So in a shot like this, that is quite important to have that, so that when you're moving the spine it's not affecting the head, especially if you've already posed out your character. Similar to the head, the arms are in FK, which means if I rotate the very top controller, it has influence on both the elbow and the wrist. Some people prefer FK, some people prefer IK. There's 1,000 different ways to set up your character. This example, if we look at the reference here, you'll see the character isn't holding anything, and generally speaking the arms follow the body throughout the entire shot. So setting the character up so that when he moves the arms follow will just make things a little bit more easier for me when I get into the cooler kind of posing. What projects did you work on for Netflix? So that's a good question, thank you. I'm not going to bring up or show the work here live on YouTube, as it is somewhat R-rated, but the TV show was called Happy, so it was a Netflix sci-fi original. I worked on the second season, not the first, so I worked on the second season, and if you look at my reel, which I believe Ferdinand has linked to, you will see that. You should see that on there. It was lots of fun. That was actually my first position within the industry, so it was quite overwhelming, but it was a great experience. I learned a ton of stuff, and it was a really fun show to work on. Lots of cartoony motion. There was a lot of flying. There was wings. There was so much to animate, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Mr. Creative, for saying my show reel is amazing. That means a lot. So the legs. So very commonly within 3D animation, the legs are mostly going to be in IK. It's just how your legs kind of work. That especially it's going to really help with running as well. So this foot can be planted and this can move forward and down, and the foot remains where it is. This is again generally how people animate in 3D with regards to legs. Okay. Mr. Creative asks, how do you start to learn 3D animation by yourself? A good question, a difficult question to ask, or to answer rather. YouTube. There's a lot of free learning material on YouTube. Obviously Animator Island. When I first started out, I actually did all of the exercises that Animator Island have on their website. If that's something that I can find, it was ages ago, but if I can find it, I can share them with you. So there's that. There's various online schools. There's various different workshops. There's mentorships. There's a lot of different things that you can do that's now more accessible. If it's free, if you're looking for a free service, again, YouTube would kind of be your go-to platform for that. There's some tutorials, I think, on Vimeo that you could look at, and obviously there's all of that. So there's the technical things and the online things, but also reading. Reading can be a good source of material to learn the basics. There's 1,000 different books available that you could buy to read. Some of them might be online. The Animator Survival Kit, which I'm sure is something Ferdinand has spoken about before on the channel, is something highly recommended by every animator. So I would advise getting that. And also practicing. So if you have access to software, again, it doesn't have to be Maya, it could be 3ds Max, or it could be Blender, it could be any software out there that allows you to do this type of thing that you see on screen. If you get it, so you can get trial versions and all that type of stuff. And just practice, just take a, not even necessarily a rig, just take a ball like this, scale it up, and then just animate this ball bouncing, and try get that to look as accurate as you can, and then squash it and stretch it and play around with different things. Lots of different things that you can do to learn how to animate. There's a lot of resources available to allow you to learn how to animate. Yeah. Was that Access Studio? It was Access Studio, yes, it was. I will prefer not using Blender program if you're new to this. So Blender is quite a steep learning curve. I know it can be difficult to learn. I only know some of it. I'm definitely not comfortable in it. It is free, so if from a financial point of view, if getting something like Autodesk Maya is going to be an issue, then it would allow you to learn how to animate in Blender. I would say rather that it, again, it's difficult to learn, and there's quite a steep learning curve to Blender, but again, it is just another software. So whatever I say today, Maya allows you to do certain things, yes, and you've got scripts and whatnot, but various different softwares allow you to do very similar things. And if you're a student and or new to animation, and you can't necessarily afford to get the indie license, the full license or whatever, then Blender could be the way that you get into 3D animation, and then you can go from there and get Maya and all that type of stuff. It is very hard to learn Blender. I do not disagree with that at all. But again, if you need a free software that is still good, then it's something worth looking into. But if you can, because Maya is industry standard, it would be the go-to one to use. It would make sense to use that. But again, software is software. So if you need something accessible, then Blender, and if you can afford to get a license for Maya, whether that's the indie or whatever, then obviously you can do that as well. Mr. Creative asks, does 3D animators need to learn codes? If by that you mean coding, not necessarily. So let me just double check. So you don't necessarily need to know how to code to animate. It's one of those skills that would be beneficial to have, but you don't necessarily need it in your everyday animation life. This little SRB icon you see up here is a custom made, it's not a, I would say it's a UI, but just now, if this is your somewhat default setup, when you open Maya, this little SRB button, you click it and it gives you this already 2 split screen window, everything you need, and this is how I work. So this little script allows me to jump back to this. So I know how to code, so this has allowed me to do that. But again, coding is not necessarily something that you need to become an animator. It will only enhance what you can do within the software for your own personal requirements, but it's not a necessity. 3D animation, 2D animation. Which would be better learning for future? See, according to me, obviously I'm a 3D animator, so I would say 3D because that's me. But if you're interested in both, you can do both. You can learn both. I think if you're a 2D animator that can do 3D animation, or if you're a 3D animator that can do 2D animation, then that's like a powerhouse. So you're skilled in both areas. If you like the look of this type of thing on screen just now, and this working with these type of rigs in 3-dimensional environments, if that interests you, then do 3D animation. If you think traditional animation is more interesting and something that you would like to do yourself, so if you look at these type of shows that you can see online and you want to learn how to do that, then do that. But I think if you're trying to choose what 2D or 3D, and if you have an interest, like a genuine interest in both, then do both, learn both. I think both somewhat complement each other. I would also say learn animation. So I'm not a 2D animator, but if I could draw, then I could still do 2D animation. I don't have the drawing abilities to be able to do Toon Boom or anything like that, but once you know how to do animation, you should be able to do both. Suggest some books to read. Okay. Let There Be Light. With regards to some books, okay, so this book, The Mechanics of Motion, is a fantastic book. Read it all. What I've done is I've went through and added little notes so I can refer back. So that's a great book. The one that I recommended earlier, which everybody recommends, is this book here. This is a fantastic book, and again I have went through and added notes and annotations, and I've physically written in the book. These are the 2 main books that I would advise getting and reading, but there's thousands. There's loads of books, loads of books. Anyway, so I should probably start animating. Keep the questions coming though. But yes, in the meantime, let's start. So I have went through and keyed the reference video, and these are the poses that I will try get through today. And these poses are the key poses that I would say are the most important throughout this entire shot. And the reason for that is this first pose, this is the first time he puts his foot down, so there's a contact pose here. This pose here, again, is a pre-lift off, so that is the difference between this screen left foot, so this one here, coming forward, and then there is the lift off pose, and then there's a lovely, this is more of a breakdown I guess, but it's still relevant information to put in so the computer's not guessing. This is the money shot. This is the pose that should look the best. This is the one that would be the thumbnail for the video. And then again, there's another contact pose here. And this is your settle, and finally your last kind of pose. So I've done the first one. So I will go through and do this next pose now. Frame 5. So I'll just go ahead and key this, and then put the foot down. One thing that I like to look out for as well is when to put the toe down. So this is more of a polish note, but in order to sell this weight, I'm going to have the toe so it's already flat. It's slightly above the ground there, so I'm just going to flatten it entirely. It will help when this is played back in real time, and when I go to spline it. So just now, if I've set it up correctly, there is no interpolation between frames 1 and 5. So that is how I work. It's referred to as blocking, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but it allows me to focus on the pose itself without getting overwhelmed by the in-betweens and all that type of thing. Jack asks, what do you like to do other than animation? I look into my personal life. I like to draw. I like to paint, which I guess is very similar in a way to animation. I go to the gym a lot. I swim. Generally quite an active person outside work. So another thing that's worth mentioning is you should have hobbies out with animation, especially ones that are outside the computer realm. Anything that gets you active is always something that I would encourage, especially if you're doing 3D animation as a full-time career, like myself. How much money do you earn as a freelance animator? It's a difficult question. It's a personal question, but it's a difficult question to ask because there's a lot of variables with regards to that. So what position is it that you have? So are you a freelance junior animator? Are you a freelance mid animator? So there's various different things that would alter my answer to that. I'm not going to say what I currently earn, but it's the going rate for someone of my level. It's a fair rate. It's a good rate, but there's again so many different factors with regards to money and income and all that type of things that it's a very difficult question to answer. It also varies depending on where you live. I live in Scotland, so my answer would be different to someone in London, perhaps. What I get paid is more likely different than Ferdinand, and there's various things that contribute to that answer, so it is quite a difficult one to answer. keep asking questions, keep them coming. Especially technical 3D questions are going to be easier for me to answer. And if I miss your question, it's because I have two screens, I have two monitors, which is why I keep looking over here. So it might be missed just because I'm going back and forth between monitors, so I'm not ignoring you by any means. So if I do miss it, just send it again and I will do my best. Okay. So this is a good time to talk about weight. So just now this character is technically in midair, so he is falling. His foot is above the ground, so he's mid-run. This is the step. This is where he's taken all of this weight. So if we're looking at it from this view, everything needs to push over to screen left. Not everything, but his the weight needs to go screen left, and he needs to account for all of his weight coming down on this leg because this one is still in the air. And it looks like he's still very square. He's kind of more like that, but we'll open that up, bring that down, and let's keep him looking, not necessarily looking at anything, but we want to keep him looking forward, straight on to where he's going. This is something about reference. This pose doesn't look like this pose, but this is a conscious decision, a creative license to tweak things. I'm using this as a rough basis to the mechanics, and I have free range to change things how I please, and so that it looks better to camera. Just now this camera's like side on. That's something that I might change, but for just now I'll leave it. Yeah, so Ferdinand makes a great point, and it's something that I am subconsciously doing, hence not talking about it. But when working in 3D, you have the luxury to jump to and from poses at any given moment just to see how they are working with each other, spacing, timing, all that good stuff. And it's something that I do a lot. I'm not using my keyboard. I do have a keyboard, but I don't use it for animation. I'm using you can see this, so it's a keypad, it's a gaming keypad, and I have mapped all of the numbers to shortkeys, to hotkeys rather, within Maya. So 17 and 18 allows me to toggle between two keyframes, like so, which is a workflow thing. It's something that helps speed up my workflow. It's not right for everybody, some people don't like that, but it's something that over the years, pressing one button is quicker, more efficient in my opinion than pressing two. And if I just have to remember 17 and 18 to toggle, then it saves me time technically and allows me to focus on the more creative elements with animation. It's one of the things that is not annoying about 3D, but there's so many different technical elements that the cleaner things can be, the quicker things can be, it just allows you as the artist to focus on the character and the performance and the mechanics. It's very cool. If you do 3D animation, it's something that I would recommend. I'm not going to hold it up because it'll ruin everything, but you saw it just there on the screen. That's what it looks like. I would definitely recommend it. Takes a little bit of time to get used to, but long term it's going to save you clicking buttons. I'm also using a graphics tablet, which is again a very common thing within the industry. It allows you to more draw. You feel like you're drawing, so you're a little bit more focused on the line of action and the posing. And using a mouse all day, if you're working long term, long hours, it just frees up your wrist a little bit for long term strains, or to help with long term strains. Ferdinand's asking all the questions. What rotation mode do you use? So just now I should be in, I'm an object. A toggle depending on, again, something that I do subconsciously, it's a hotkey. 13. So when it comes to moving the foot, normally it's world space because it gives me the forward direction. When it's the COG, or the main control, that will be object. I've set up this character so that it should avoid gimbal rotation, which is always something that's very, not difficult, but it's time consuming to address within 3D. So if you set up your character correctly, you should avoid it, and if not, there's various ways to get around it. Ferdinand, do you do a 3D animation? A question for you. Or have you done 3D animation? I feel like you might have. I think you said you did. So, I don't know what this hand is doing. Some animation. Nice. Okay. So, the weight is not as far forward quite yet. One thing I've also set up, again, something that I just do before doing anything within the scene, as it makes things easier for me, is I have these little tabs below, which is a script. The all button selects all of the controllers, and I've assigned things like the clavicle, so you'll see that selects this one here, the left leg, clavicle, right leg, the head, the neck, the pelvis, etc. I do that so that if I'm in this view, which is my shot cam, and I want to change the neck, for example, I can just click down here and it selects that neck for me. If I want to change this foot here, I'll select that button. So it's just a quicker way to get there than double clicking and selecting the foot like that, because by then I might have forgot what it was I was going to do. So again, the quicker you can get there, the more efficient you can be, the better, which is again something that I would recommend. Yeah, Jack, you're right. So it is A-Tools, which is the free, well, not the free, but it's the prior version to Animbot. So A-Tools is free, Animbot is a subscription last time I checked. I only use it for this and this little tab, which is something that I can talk about next time. Other than that, I don't use it, but A-Tools for these two things are a huge lifesaver when it comes to animation. So you see I keep constantly on this side of the screen toggling back between perspective and the front view, just so I can see it from all angles, rather than just animating to camera, because if I do that the weight might be off. If we look at the shot cam, which again is screen right, and if I just put this character like there, for example, if I look at it in this view, it doesn't look wrong. It looks okay. But then if you actually look at it in perspective, you can see just how far off that is from being correct. It's not wrong unless this is what you're going for, but it's not what I'm going for, so I will undo that. So I would also advise doing the same thing, toggling between different viewports, because you can in 3D utilize that so that you see it from all angles and it looks and feels correct. That way, even though you could see it from this view, the weight is still going to be correct and it's not going to feel weird when you play it back. It's something that I did not used to do. I would only ever animate to camera, and then if this were production, that camera could change, and if that camera changes, then obviously your shot drastically changes from a mechanical point of view, because you might see things that you're trying to hide. So where possible, I would advise animating the poses, so doing the poses to camera so they look good, but also ensuring that from a weight point of view things look correct. That way, again, if cameras change, you're not going to get caught out. If it's a personal project, then animate how you want, but it is good practice to do that. Okay, so this hand here might change further down the line, but for just now it looks okay. One thing I forgot is this character can look like this by default, but I want to add a different texture. Ninja shader. So this character, when you purchase it, it has various different textures that you can assign. There is there is an incredible one. There is a ninja and a Wonder Woman. So I'm just going to put the default ninja. Then add that to everything. Should be easier than that. Let me select. That's what I should be doing. Larber. Locate the file, which is there. There we go. That's better. This will also help with regards to silhouette. So because this character is mostly all black now, I can see what's working, what's not working from a silhouette point of view. If I stay with this camera, which again is something that I might do, I might not, but for just now I will try pose things so they look nice from this angle as well. And the black texture will help with that. Okay, this is cool for now. So the next pose is going to be this pose. Now this is tricky because it should technically be before that, but if this front foot is here, it's just lifted off and move forward slightly. So to help, I'm going to set a key on 13, which I'll delete in a minute, but if I just raise the heel up, so that's full height, and again I will delete this key, and that is more or less full stretch, again similar to the reference video. I'm then going to take the COG and that leg, and if I hop forward I will copy and paste that, delete that. So now I know that is full extension, so then I can take it and move it forward slightly, and then it also goes up, rotates back, and by then the heel is no longer using that attribute, or at least I don't want it to be using that attribute. Again, I'll nudge it forward slightly. And the idea here is I'm finding the distance between these two poses. And then he's picking his feet up off the ground. So now I know, this is always something that I can change, but at least for just now, I know that that is about the right distance he travels. Oh, somebody's spamming things. Jack asks, how did you get the Axis job? Oh, that's a question. So, how did I apply to one of their positions? That's online, or that was online, and they replied not too long afterwards with an offer of like mentorship within the studio, and then I did that mentorship, and it was a similar thing that you see me doing just now. So I worked on a shot with guidance from various people within the company, and again it was a body mechanics shot. It wasn't this, but it was similar to this, and then afterwards they asked if I wanted to be an animator on Happy. So initial mentorship, and then that went really well. They were quite happy with what they saw, and then from there I was offered to work on Happy. Then after Happy it was Guild Wars 2 maybe? No. It was Deathloop, I think. You know, it's been that long that I don't remember. But it was yeah, I think it was Happy, Deathloop, Guild Wars 2, Magic the Gathering. I might be missing one. I might be missing two. But through mentorship is the answer to your question. Then it was good fun. It was great. I learnt a lot. I got to ask lead animators how they work, and the benefit of knowing how other people work is you can adapt that. You can take things you like, things that you don't like. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong or you're right. But the way that I work is different to the way that you might work or Ferdinand might work. Everybody has their various ways at animating, but the ultimate goal is for it to look great at the end. So having that mentorship allowed me to learn from very experienced people within the industry, like very, very experienced. And I was allowed to sit and ask questions all day, every day, which is great. It's again something that I encourage now. So ask questions. Ask all the questions within reason, but ask them so that you can get better. The questions that you've asked today will naturally make me better. It's all food for thought, and sharing how you work, how others work is a great way to develop yourself. It's also a great way for the people who are telling you how they animate to figure out how other people animate. As Ferdinand says, essentially steal workflows, steal them, adapt them, change them again. I think one thing that is important within animation, regardless of what field you do it in, whether it's 2D, 3D, whatever, stop motion, etc. One thing that is important is your workflow today might not necessarily be the workflow you have in a year. In theory, it shouldn't be, because you should adapt it constantly. You'll have a general kind of workflow, how you set your keys and things like that, but the way that you do things should change. You should always be open to learning, to adapting. The workflow just now that you see a month ago, it would have been different maybe. I'm always doing things like this, so did you take any online schools and training? Another question from Jack. So yes, I've done many schools. Off the top of my head, Anim School, Anim Squad, CG Master Academy, several personal mentorships with friends and people within the industry. I am constantly taking workshops and trying to learn, and if it's something that you can do, if it's something that you can afford, because they can be expensive. Again, it is worth it. It's always worth it. But don't think those type of schools are necessarily going to make you a great animator. They will definitely give you the opportunity, but animation is very much like nobody can do it for you, so you can't hide behind things particularly that easy. So if you are going to take those schools or those workshops or anything like that, like really like give it your all, and make sure that you can dedicate the time required to do so, because animation takes forever. So if you don't have the time because you're working, you're doing other things, that's fine. If you can make the time to do those type of workshops, then you'll be winning. But animation takes forever, so if you're going to do it, I would advise really giving it your all, really putting as much as you can into it. Not like 24/7, but 24/6 maybe. Yeah, definitely give it your all. It is a lot of skills. I'm notoriously bad for it, but I enjoy it. It goes back to the thing that I was saying regarding picking up different workflow tips and just everything. So it's something that I enjoy doing. I love animation. Animation is awesome. And I've got an honours degree as well, so I did go to university and studied digital media, specialising in animation. So then from there I did Anim School, and I continuously adapted and continuously learned. So I have done a lot, like quite a lot of schools, more so than most people, but again, it's something that I just enjoy doing. I like having a project on the go, and I always have this thing where I want to be better than myself a year ago. It's just a fun little challenge that I set myself. I don't necessarily need to upload anything. I've got loads of different projects that I've done that I've not uploaded for various reasons, but I'm constantly working on things, constantly trying to get better, taking workshops and all that good stuff. And it's something that I would also advise doing yourself if you're serious about it. did I go to Abertay? No, so I went to Napier, a university called Napier. Okay, so the spine. Spine is notoriously difficult to animate, because this pose I want it to do that, but it's not really what I'm going for. The spine is flexible, more so than you would think, but also because you have ribs, you have to take that into consideration. Many different things to think about when animating a spine. Just now, I'm not overly fond of the way that it see, it does rotate, but you can't really see it too well. And then he's also taken, what's the next pose? What is the next pose? So he's rotated that way, slightly rotated. So this is kind of, it's an antic almost to that rotation. But I think it's because of his arm. I think his arm is confusing me a little bit. So his arm comes down. And then we're losing the hand, but that's okay. Just now, that hand is still in a fist. Look at that arc. Look at that natural arc. That's so cool. This rig allows you to bend. So I'll add a little bend in there, just to get that shape. Okay, cool. And then I'll rotate that forward. The next pose is this pose. So his leg or his foot is raised. This is straight up and rotated, and then because he's again, remember the weight, if he's on this foot, his weight needs to account for that. He's also going to turn his hips and raise the hips. Bring the foot forward. And remove the toe. Now, this is a difficult pose because he's already starting to twist here. That's what this foot is doing. So allowing him to contort like that to move round. His arm is now up in the air. and this is a mechanics thing, but if his arm is up like that, then his clavicle also needs to be up, because that is how arms work. So if I raise that up, and bring this backhand comes forward, I think. Because it then goes around. A little bit of creative freedom because I can't quite see what it does entirely. Okay, so we're probably going to wrap up soon. This is always something I can continue again if people are interested. So if anybody has any questions, by all means ask away. This could be stronger. Up. Add a little bit of touch there, just to the toe. Let's just open these up slightly, just so there's a little bit of change between the previous pose. And if he's jumping, he will most likely open his arms slightly, his fingers, and then he will grip them again, or close them rather, when he lands. So this character, the reference video, his arm comes forward and you don't see it again till about here-ish. which is fine, but for this pose I'm going to favour it still being here. Just so we can see it during takeoff. And it's okay to move around as he twists because he's twisting, so that's fine. But for just now, I'm going to leave it rather still visible, which will only impact when he does do the twist and you see it come back round. That'll make sense during the actual twisting part. Okay, so what, 4 poses? Not even got to the good stuff yet. Weight on the neck, down, and then have it still forward, and then have the neck slightly hunched in, just a little bit. And it's a shame you can't still see his, or you could still see his visor. I'll favour it slightly, and when I say visor I mean it's the white mask, just so this pose reads a little bit better. Got a weird shape to it. And then if that comes down a little bit, just a little bit, you can see that cleaner. Then when we're here, we'd be as well doing the same thing with the arm, just so it keeps it in frame and everything's nice. Bring this arm back, so it starts off quite high, starting to come down, back, and then it starts to go forward again, and then because of that we'll add in just a little drag in the wrist, and what's going to happen is when he does his twist it'll read really nicely and should be quite snappy. Now if we look at this from the front view, just to see what it looks like, that could have a nicer shape. And if we take that away from his head, even though we're not looking at it from this angle, it'll help me sleep at night knowing that that silhouette is nice and clear. And we probably want to add a took it out, but we probably want to add just a little bit of flex to that spine because he is about to go that direction. And then this could look nicer. Animate this from world space. That's probably better. Yeah, anybody that's here, if you've got a question before I leave, I'll leave in about 5 minutes or so. You still have time. Still have time to ask. And I will do my best to answer. Any questions about this shot or anything that I've done or anything of that nature? One cool thing, there's a big gap here just now between frames 5 and 15. Now from a breakdown point of view, if we get the script tween machine and just put it bang in the middle, it gives you this, which is terrible, but it is a good start to this pose. It's wrong, but it's still a good start. Because now I can take this right leg, for example, this right leg doesn't move, so I'll just bring that back there. I can take the COG and it's still favouring that previous pose, which is about there-ish or so. The foot is still flat, so that's okay. This front foot is again favouring the previous pose. So I can nudge it there, and then silhouette wise, that's again horrible. I'll take that, I'll move it forward slightly, just so we can see it. COG needs to be higher, because he's pushing off. And then this arm, the one that's closest to us, is favouring that next pose, like that-ish. I can take this one and do the same, and then I can manipulate it from there even further. I'll move the hand, take this back arm, and this back arm is midway through that pose. But again, we're losing it. So I will favour having some of it there. Head seems okay-ish. So it's not perfect, but generally speaking, you can see how quick it is to get a breakdown kind of working. By no means perfect, but if I was to adapt this and work on this, it would also look better. Same here. So there's 15 and 21. 18 is the middle of that. Hit that button. Now again, terrible. Absolutely terrible. But if I take this key, favour that. If I take that leg, which is over here, that is about middle ground. Do you see how, not easy, but do you see how quick it is to get a loosely working breakdown? And then you can go in there and change things and tweak things. So the computer can only do so much for you, but it is a good start. people are confused about 3D. I'm deleting these keys because it's something that I want to do more. That was a very quick demo. Okay, so I've done a lot of talking. Next time we can probably get all the blocking done in a similar fashion to what I've just done here. Continuous working through, add more keys, and then go into breakdowns and spline and polish and arcs and space and timing, all that good stuff at a later date. Final call for questions if anybody has anything, and if not, I will bid you farewell soon. Okay, very cool. Hope some of this has been useful. Thank you again to Ferdinand for having me. Yeah, awesome.